Is it a box of donuts? Because that'd be really good.
Well, see, there's an inside joke to this, somewhat.
Okay.
So, we're very big on social
Thank you very
media.
much.
And when we put out that you were going to be our guest, one of the replies was from one of your East Coast buddies, who I actually knew from Southern California, Eric Gio. And his response was, he loves a good donut. So we know you have Dunkin'
Yeah,
on the East Coast, but Shipley's
much better.
is a Southern thing.
Yeah, and I'm not just saying that just because I'm in Arkansas. It's
Shipley,
much
it's
better.
a good old Southern donut. So welcome to Hot
Thank you
Springs.
very much.
Yeah. So,
If you have a lunch show, I love barbecue too. If
oh,
if we could do that.
the taste of Hot Springs, we can definitely hook that up. So, yeah. So, congratulations. What you want me to take those,
Sure.
or you?
I can
you
hold on to 'em.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. What?
I was-
Hey,
would you
I
like
don't want to.
one?
I don't want to take a donut from
just
from a
take
hungry
one,
man.
though.
Yeah. So I do want to first thank you because this is, I think, one of the first times I've done a Dawn at Oaklawn and really not known a whole lot about my guests. So I really had to dive deep in the trenches.
That's probably good that you
and-
don't.
I'm not going to say that. But I do want to kind of give just a little background about Jeremiah. He has almost 7,000 starts as a trainer, just shy of 1,600 wins. He's in the money 53%, and his horses have earned more than $37 million. Not too shabby.
Not bad. We're getting there.
You're getting there.
We're
He
getting
says
there.
not too bad. I love when anytime I give the earnings, everybody always says, "Where did it go?
Yeah.
Where did it go?"
Yeah, because I don't have $37.
Especially when Saturday is payroll day,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
right.
His last name is legendary in Finger Lakes, up in Farmington, New York. His dad is trainer Chris, who is in the Finger Lakes Hall of Fame. He has 15 training titles
It sounds about right.
up there.
Yeah.
His dad has more than 4,400 wins and 54 million in earnings. You come from a very big family,
Yes.
and your brother trains as well.
Yes. My brother Jeffrey.
So was that kind of was there child labor involved growing up?
Yeah, definitely would not have. The new labor laws and standards were not in effect back in the 80s and 90s when I was working. It was basically you had to go to work and you worked for your food and your board. That was it.
So you came out of the womb with a shank in your
Yes,
hand,
yes,
basically.
yeah.
So was it kind of inevitable that you would get into the family business?
I always wanted to be a trainer growing up, and I got to about 16, 17, 18, and I was, wanted to try to do a few different things. I worked on a golf course one summer in the afternoons while I was working in the mornings and just doing different things. But then I went to college for a few years and was trying to get away, but always kept my hand in it. And my brother and I claimed our first horse, and he won his first race. And then I quit school and went to work as a trainer from there. So
The racetrack seems to be like a vacuum vortex. It just sucks you in.
yeah, and you can't get out. It's so hard to get out.
So kind of growing up in your dad's footsteps, what were some of the teaching tools that you incorporate today into your own barn?
Mainly just trying to recognize when a horse is right, whether it's claiming or a horse you have. You just look at the horse's overall health when they're on the track. Such as the mornings, you want them to train a certain way, and some horses, they're all different. They'll train. I have one horse that doesn't put a whole lot into training because he knows what he's doing, and then you'll have some that want to get out here and train. It's just the first thing he always told me was recognize when they're right, and that's when you want to race and run. Now, you're learning something every day in this business, and I've been blessed to have friends that have helped me along the way. I've called Todd Pletcher, Shug McGahee, John Paracella when I lived at his house for 2 years in New York, and just along the way, you're able to ask people that have done it. I've asked Wayne Lucas here, like, hey, should I run in the Southwest or the Rebel, with 3 technique, and he's gonna give you, uh, you know, his best opinion, and you're listening. So
Yeah.
one thing I picked up is always listen.
Continuing on, you did take out your trainer's license in 2003, and it wasn't long. You saddled your first winner at Belmont, of all places, right? It
Yes.
wasn't. It wasn't at your home track at Finger Lakes.
Yeah, I was working. I went down to New York one winter with my dad, and I stayed there and worked as an assistant for Mike Hushin, and then followed that up with Kenny McPeak. And then I had one horse I claimed and had one stall in the receiving barn. The first night that I had I didn't even have a tack room. I bought all new equipment, and the first night there, everything got stolen. So
Oh.
it was, it was a nice awakening into the, New York.
Welcome to Belmont.
Yeah, welcome to Belmont. So, but no, I was lucky. I had a great client that, you know, let me claim a couple horses, and we did pretty well.
Well, it wasn't long after that he saddled his first stakes winner and then his first graded stakes winner. Fast forward to 2016, and his 1,000th career win came at Finger Lakes with West Sedona. Did it feel like everything had kind of come full circle when you celebrated that moment?
It was a nice moment because of the relationship I had with the client, Mark Whipperman. I know that meant a lot to him that I was able to get my 1,000th win with him, and it's just that was the nice part about it. My dad was there, my mom was there, so it's a number, and you're still going to wake up the next morning. You're still going to have to work. You're still going to have bad news. You're still going to have good news, but it's when I think when your career and actually end up being a lifer in the business. When it's over, you can look back at those moments and really get to appreciate, the good times in the sport.
Now, a big day in his career came on November 2nd of 2013. The Santa Anita Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, that is contested at 1.16 miles. Jeff Bondi's She's a Tiger had Gary Stevens in the iron. She set the fractions and finished in front by a nose, 5-1. She went off. She drifted out just slightly and bothered Ria Antonia. Javier Castellano in the irons, 32-1. She went off at, trained by this guy, Jeremiah Englehart. Now, there was an inquiry, and unfortunately, a Baffert's horse went down in that race, was vanned off. Stewart's inquiry, talk me about the emotions that you were going through, because that filly hadn't been in your barn that long.
No,
Because she had raced up at Woodbine and then was in your barn for a race, and then you headed out to Santa Anita. What was going through your mind as they're going down the stretch and then sitting through that inquiry?
I don't know if you have enough time.
Oh, let's go. Take
right.
me through it.
Well, yeah, Ron Palucci sent me her to run, I think in the Demos or a stake at Belmont, and she ran 5th. But after the race, like I kind of took her out of her running style. She was the type of filly that you just want to take a nice long hold and let her gallop along. She wasn't going to have that quick turn of foot where you could just sit back and then she's going to make that charge at the end. So, in knowing that after the race, Ron really wanted to run her in the Breeders' Cup still, and I still wanted to train her to get a shot because she was training well.
Right.
And we took her out there 2 weeks early. I had to work a week before the race, and I mean, she worked 5/8 and 59-1, and it was still to this
At
day.
Santa Anita.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's still to this day the most impressive work I've had in the morning. I remember I was standing with Richie DePass, and he goes, "Who is that?" I go, "That is your winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile filly right there." And it's a little running joke him and I always have, from that weekend. But the feeling you had during the race was, all I remember is telling Javier, whatever the owner just told you to do in the paddock, don't do it. Do this, and we'll have a really good shot. I said, just let her run. I go, just take a nice long hold, and she'll out sprint everyone for 7/8 of a mile.
Yeah.
But she won't out kick everyone for a quarter of a mile. And he did that. If you go back and watch the replay, coming out of the gate. She breaks a little slow, but then he lets her just run on, and that's exactly what
It's
she
almost like
did.
she rebroke
Yeah, yeah,
in the stretch.
yeah, yeah.
Very impressive.
So I was standing behind the Bromans, and they had like one of the favorites in the race, and I remember like, boy, I'm in contention. Well, I like to run third. I'm standing there with my wife, and everyone's now jumping up and down like, oh, she's gonna run good. I'm like, just hang on for third. I like to be third in the Breeders' Cup. That'd be nice. And then she got second. I'm like, oh man, she's gonna be second. And then I'm like, boy, she's got a chance to win. But I remember, don't jump up and down, and because the Bromans are standing right in front of you, and they're
Cameras are on them.
right. And I'm like, they're not gonna, their horse isn't running as good as yours, so just be quiet.
How respectful.
Well, that's all I remember going through my mind at the time. But so then we run second, and I thought we were second at the wire. And I walked down. I'm like, I'm gonna be happy with second in the Breeders' Cup. And the owner comes up. He says, "You got a clean foul." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "She got bumped." And sure enough, Javier came back. He's like, "I got bumped pretty good at the wire. I clean foul." And I remember sitting there for the 10 minutes it took to review that. It felt like 10 days. And I remember just my uncle who had passed a few years before that, I looked up to him. I'm like, listen, if there's ever a time I'm going to ask for something in this sport, I'm going to ask for it right now. And then I remember Trevor Denman saying, "Ladies and gentlemen," and I knew right there was going to be, he was going to get taken
inquiry.
down. So
Wow.
it was a pretty cool feeling, yeah.
And to be moved up at 32-1, I believe 66 and change that she paid.
Yeah, yeah.
So to get your picture taken at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly, that had to be. Then you got to hoot and holler and
Yeah,
be a muck.
afterwards, I actually won a Rolex afterwards. The owner told me, he's like, "Oh, if we run 1, 2, 3, I'm going to give you my Rolex." And I'm like, "Okay." And then after the race, he
You could
did.
afford another one.
Gave me the Rolex. Yeah, I was really excited about that. But no, it's funny. Like, I don't remember as much after the race celebrating as I do just waiting for that inquiry.
Yeah.
It seemed like the inquiry took
Like a maximum security time
Right,
of
right,
yeah,
yeah,
which was
and
like
it just-
22 minutes or something.
And then I'm like, I can't remember what happened after the race, but it was. You just always remember what that inquiry was.
And you will never forget that.
Never.
Did
never.
you name a child, Rhea?
No, I haven't. No. And I think we're done now. I think we have 5. So
Yeah, he has 5 children.
Yeah.
You have 5 other siblings, but were you looking for a certain number?
No, actually, I mean, my wife and I for the longest time we couldn't have kids, and then this happened, and then we had 5. Like, our oldest is 9, our youngest is 4. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And we bought a TV, so we're done having kids now. And is that okay to say?
Yeah, when this goes on YouTube, she's gonna
No,
love it.
Yeah, she's no, trust me, I owe everything I have to her, because I mean, to do as much traveling as I do, and she's raised 5 kids that were 4 years apart in age.
That's a lot of diapers.
Yeah, a lot of diapers. Yeah, a lot of screaming, a lot of crying,
It's a lot of wine.
oh yeah, she's hooked on the wine now.
It's mommy juice.
Yeah.
That is mommy juice. Well, interestingly enough, he trains for one of the biggest names in sports, and that would be NFL Hall of Famer, 2-time Super Bowl winning coach of the New York Giants. And I don't know why. Thank you, Pastor. I don't know why this is his nickname, the Big Tuna, but it's Bill Parcells. I read where you did grow up a Giants fan.
Yeah.
What is it like to train for your childhood icon? You sat in front of the TV as a kid cheering on the Giants, and now you got a personal relationship with this man.
It's really surreal, and getting to know him as not only as his trainer but as a friend, you understand why he was as good a coach as he is, because he's one of those guys, like, he gives you a talk and you're like, boy, I'd do anything for this guy. I'd run through this brick wall. I could just imagine what it was like on Sundays in the locker rooms, and but he's just real smart, intelligent, and he's not that everyone has life figured out, but he knows, he just has it. Just has it, and I'm really lucky in this sport. You get to train horses for successful businessmen and successful coaches like him, and get to learn a little bit on how they do things, and just hope a little bit of it rubs off on you.
So the first time he called you, and obviously, I'm guessing you didn't have his number in your phone. Did you put it on speaker? And I can just like when somebody of importance calls me, I'm just like, oh,
Yeah, that was
and you're
basically what I
kind of
did.
like doing the dance,
Yeah,
and
I got
like
the paper bag. I was hyperventilating, like breathing in and out. It was a 214. It was a Texas number.
it's a
So
Cowboys number.
yeah, and that which really bothered me afterwards, like as I got to know him, like because I went to his house and saw the trophy cases. I told him I skipped right over the Dallas part of his career. I just stuck. Sorry, I know. But no,
No offense.
when he called me, it was like one of those like, oh, I'm never erasing this message off my phone ever. And then accidentally one day I did, but it was surreal. Like you said, he was my idol growing up. Like that, I was a giant fan. And he was the tuna. He was the guy that brought us LT and smash mouth football, good defense, and which are still things that stick today. But it was pretty surreal.
Well, it's interesting because he trains under August Dawn Farms. So when you look in the program and you see August Dawn, that is actually Bill
Yeah.
Parcells. So I like that he incorporates a lot of his horses' names into football isms,
Yes.
I should say.
Yeah.
But it's interesting as this technically is not your first time at Oaklawn.
Right.
Jeremiah ran a horse in the Arkansas Derby the same year as American Pharoah. A lot of trainers say that they picked a really bad year to have a good 3-year-old.
Yeah, that was.
The year is American Pharoah. That was kind of your first taste of hot springs. A lot of people, when they come from the East Coast, especially Saratoga, I know that you've spent quite a few years in Saratoga. They kind of say that this has the traditions like Saratoga. Did you kind of feel like the southern Saratoga? I like to say that you're the northern Oaklawn.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of similarities. Like I moved to Saratoga 2 years ago, and even like during the meet especially, there's a lot of similarities between the passion that the town has for the racing there and here. Like and that was one of my main reasons for going here. You want to go to places where people love the sport, and here they come to the racing first, and then afterwards they go to the casino.
Yeah.
And you don't find that anywhere else. And I think we get spoiled in New York, and don't realize sometimes how lucky we are to have Saratoga, and then when you come here, you realize like, boy, there's still some places like that are pretty special.
So a lot of New Yorkers do go south in the winter, but your barn ventured even further south and did decide to come to Oaklawn. What ultimately led to that decision, and how did you specifically pick the stock that you did that came here?
Well, I had started talking about it with clients, mainly Coach Parcells and Al Gold, Gold Square LLC. They would look at Oaklawn, and by January, they were always tired of being in Florida. It seemed like it was so expensive, and the not that I mean the competition's tough here, but you're just the purses are better here, and you're running, for more money. So you start watching the racing, and it started last year during the wintertime. We started talking about it, and I just kept the plan all summer, and I was going to select mainly the two turning 3 year olds and the allowance horses and the stake horses to come here, and just because I like the stakes program, and the way you can bring a younger horse up through the ranks here, and that's mainly what we planned on horse wise bringing here.
We mentioned, or I mentioned earlier, that Three Technique was going to be breezing first after the break. Is
Yes.
that still the
Yep.
plan?
Yep.
So very, very impressive 3-year-old. Three Technique was solid New York bred, and he came here to make his two-turn and his open company debut in the Smarty Jones. And I like the fact that Jeremiah chose the Smarty Jones specifically because it had that short stretch of the mile. And I like to say that he got a very good lesson
Yeah.
out of that race because of that short stretch. So he is going to breeze first after break. tell us how far he's going to go and how he's progressed since the Smarty Jones.
Every race, he's basically seemed like he's gotten better and better and smarter after every race. Today, we're going to, last week we worked on a nice easy 5/8. He went 102 and galloped out well. I'm going to let him pick it up a little bit today because I want this work to sharpen him up where I'll slow him down a little bit next week. And I'm working him with another really nice colt by the name of Wendell Fong. So 3 Technique will be on the outside of Wendell Fong, who has put in some good quick works here. So they should have a good work together.
Now, who's going to be on 3 Technique?
It'll be his exercise rider, Markel Lemon.
So I'm glad you mentioned Wendell Fong because Wendell Fong is 4, and a lot of trainers will sometimes work a good 3-year-old against an older horse to try to give him, make him work a little bit harder. Wendell Fong faced top graded stakes runners in the grade 1 Woody Stevens and the grade 2 Amsterdam. I did some homework on you, Jeremiah.
Okay.
Worked 5 furlongs out of the gate on the 23rd in 59-4. He worked the bullet, which means he was the fastest of that day out of 84 works. He is nominated to the Hot Springs next Saturday. Is he planning on running in the Hot Springs?
That's the plan, yes.
Okay, so there's a little tidbit there for you, folks. So you only get that kind of stuff at Dawn at Oaklawn. So interested to see Wendell Fong. Do you have a pilot for Wendell Fong yet?
David Cohen.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you New Yorkers kind of stick together.
Yeah, it's Al Gold is. We have a mutual friend in Billy Castle, and he just converted me. I'm Jewish now, and now we all stick together. David, Bill Castle, Al Gold, we're all sticking together because we have the same faith. I didn't really convert.
I was just going to ask. Yeah.
He has a picture of me with a yarmulke on on a good Shabbos dinner that I ate way too much food at, but that's when he said I converted.
I do love a good matzo ball soup.
Oh, yeah.
Also, a very interesting 3-year-old he has in his barn is Tuggle. Ran 3rd in the grade 2 Saratoga Special and ran a really good 2nd here at Oaklawn against a bear of an allowance optional 80 claimer back on the 23rd. What's the plan with Tuggle?
I mean, we thought he would run a solid race. He's actually shown us a little bit more maturity this year and want and drive in the mornings, where I really thought he was going to run well in that race. And like you said, it was a very difficult field. And he broke a little flat-footed. Our plan was to be forwardly placed in the first tier and try to, work out a trip from there. But when he broke a little flat-footed, David felt like he probably had to do a little bit more than he wanted to in that first quarter, and it just cost him a little bit late. And it's been a little while since he's run, so I didn't know if I had him that ready to run that type of race. But he's came out of the race well, and I think I would still try to win that 1X first, and then maybe look to graduate to some small 3-year-old stakes. I from what I see from him right now, he wants to be that type of horse.
You've got some really, really solid stock here in Critical Value. Very nice 3-year-old filly. A lot of fans here very familiar with 10 Strike Racing, as we saw them. I don't think the horse fit in the winner's circle when Warriors Charge won. I think all of West Memphis and part of Hot Springs was in there. Was 4th in the grade 2 Demoiselle and has had some very, very sharp works here. Your horses seem to have really adjusted very well to the Oaklawn surface. We've seen, some of the California horses need a race or two before really, really adjusting. But your horses seem to have really done well in getting their feet on the ground.
Yeah, I'm always a big believer in letting them have 2-3 works over the track before you run, or shipping in like right before the race. I feel if you change a surface like in a week's time or something, the horses, they have 3 or 4 days where they're going to adjust to the track, and whether they get muscle sore or not, it's just they don't, like after a week they're not the same as they were when they came in if they were doing really well. So the one benefit the Naira tracks are usually predominantly pretty deep. Coming here, I'm a big fan of the surface here. It probably has a lot to do with being the natural spring and the dirt, whatnot, is just nicer, and it just seemed like they've gotten over it pretty well.
Now, I love this 3-year-old filly's name, Marianne or Ginger. Do you want the smoky redhead or the cerebral brunette? So a really nice 3-year-old filly. She actually broke her maiden in the debut against stakes runners in the Astoria at Belmont. How do you make that decision? Did the maiden not go, and you just said, you know what, let's just run her in a stakes, see what happens?
It basically just like that. I wanted to run her on the grass, and Al and I at the time, he desperately wants dirt horses first, and then make them prove that they're not going to be dirt horses. And he talked me out of running her on the turf, so I missed the dirt race. And I'm like, she's working well enough, Al. I won this race a couple years ago with a filly that was, just an early 2-year-old, and she was smart, and anything, you threw at her, she handled just fine. I'm like, we could try the Astoria, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. And
Well, it paid off.
It did. Yeah, it really did.
So he's got 3 horses in today. Speaking of converting, Good Shabbos. I don't think that's how it's spelled, but Good Shabbos in the opener. How do you think that race is going to set up for Good Shabbos, as the first is for maiden 3-year-old fillies, as she comes from off a bit of a break after a third at Belmont in early October?
Yeah, her last race, I really wanted to try to give her a little break even before that. She's run against some really nice fillies. I mean, one of the filly that beat her in Saratoga won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And she's been training real forward. I was actually planning on waiting until I think it was the 14th to run her, but she's been kind of like the same time frame as Tuggle. And when he ran so well, I just figured that she's ready. She's doing very well. It's a tough race, but, we should get a good gauge on her today. But she's been doing extremely well.
Okay, in the 8th, a allowance optional claimer. He runs for the allowance 3-year-olds. That is the number 4, Captain Bombastic. This horse also coming off a bit of a break from Aqueduct in mid-December, running a very nice New York bred. Has won a state bred stakes, coming off a third when racing over the slop. And we've seen your state bred horses transition very well here, as we saw that with 3 Technique.
Yeah, I can guarantee you Captain Bombastic will not win today. Because we had to.
Are you scratching?
Yeah, we had to scratch him this morning. So.
Okay, well, moving on. Yeah, I mean, you say that.
He's just got a little temp, so he's doing.
Okay,
fine.
he will live. Captain will fight another day.
Yes, he will.
In the 10th and final, the 1 Mow and Go. This is for the coach, the big tuna, breaking from the rail, coming off a break from late or mid-November at Aqueduct, going a mile and an eighth. I noticed a lot of your horses go a mile and an eighth.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just the way it works out in the book, or he's a horse that just seems in his training like he'll just keep going and going and going and going. So hopefully, distance. We don't run into any distance limitations.
So let's not break my streak. I'm 2 for 2 so far with Dawn at Oaklawn-Guest making it to the winner's circle.
Okay.
So you've got horses in bookend races, the 1st and the 10th.
Okay.
Who's your best shot, Jeremiah?
Oh.
Hit me with your best shot.
I like them both. I really do.
You do?
I think both of them are sitting on big races.
Okay.
And I'm not just being biased. They're just both training well.
Okay. Well, there you have it. We'll see if if I can go 3 for 3, if I can go with a hat trick here.
3 for 3. I'm going to come back next week. He could be 3 for 3.
Well, I need to get my husband out here is what I need to do. So we've got your worker coming up,
Yeah.
3 Technique.
My donuts.
Your donuts, Shipley, by the way. So 3 Technique, if all goes well, what is going to be the pattern for him going into the Rebel?
Well, I mean, he's been pretty push button as far as what we wanted to see from him. Like I said, we'll let him pick it up this work a little bit and then kind of back down in his last work for the Rebel. Right now we're working on riders to. I know Irad is going to. I think Irad is riding one of Bob's 3-year-olds in the race.
Is he going to be
Drinking?
No.
Oh.
This is drinking.
Oh, okay, sorry.
This is because he's got a broken wrist.
Oh,
He should
Jose.
be, that's Jose.
Yeah, Jose.
Sorry. Yeah.
They're like twins.
Yeah,
basically.
they pretty much are twins. So okay, so
He probably felt his.
he did.
So
It was
Jose,
it was telepathic. Yeah. So Now I noticed you've got the radio. Do your riders wear radios?
Yes.
Okay, so he is able to communicate with his riders, and is that not during? Are you telling them get a little more, or
I try
do you
not to.
leave them alone?
I leave them alone a little bit because I don't want to confuse them. Like I
Yeah,
won't say like this quarter you went too fast, slow down, and oh no, pick it up, or because they're
it.
trying to
Yeah,
concentrate on the work
yeah.
as well. So what I'll do is I'll give them the splits. They already know beforehand what type of work I want to see from the work, and they can kind of gauge on, well, if it's 13 and 3, do we want to let them give them a little bit more of the rein, to pick up in the next quarter and down the lane. But usually I'm not too vocal on it. But if I want them to slow down, or I'll tell you where it comes in handy was a few weeks ago we had a horse that was the rider had a difficulty and got down on the fence backing up, and I saw him at the last second, and I told him on the walkie-talkie, Markel, get your head up. There's a horse on the fence in front of you, and he was able to
That's
get out to
very
the center of the
important.
track. So, a lot of times they don't see what's in front of them,
Yeah.
and that was one of those times where it really paid off to have the walkie-talkie.
Now, where are your current strings, and how many are where?
So I have about 25 horses at Belmont. I think we have 28 here. We have a lot of horses laid up in South Carolina at Webb Carroll's Training Center, and a lot of babies there. There's probably in between 50 to 60 horses there that are getting ready to come in for
Wow.
the spring. So, right now this is probably where we're concentrated on some of our best twos turning threes and older horses, and then when the spring comes, because I spend most of my time in Saratoga, we'll train most of the horses in Saratoga.
So the horses that typically would go to Gulfstream, they came here this year.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you've got the string of 5 with your wife up at Farmington.
No, she's yes. That's the graded stakes.
That's the graded
Yeah,
stakes mare.
yeah. At first,
Yes.
when you said that, I'm like, my wife doesn't have 5 horses in Farmington. I live in Saratoga. What? Oh, my kids. That's right.
Yeah. Well, I believe I'm interesting to see that the water truck came out.
Yeah, that was good. I actually called them to make sure. No, I didn't. I'm just kidding.
He has
Please water.
he's
Water
it's your first year
Carol.
here. I don't know if you've got that kind
I
of pull. No, I
am
bet he
not that.
does.
I'm not that type of person. Like I don't call and ask for races or nothing. I just whatever I get is what we deal with. So
I bet if you made a call, you could get some pull.
you know what? I shouldn't say that. The track superintendent at Naira's, if he watches this, he's probably gonna get a good chuckle over this right now. Glenn, if
We'll
you,
send him the link. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Jeremiah Englehart. Do you mind if we watch the work with you?
no, absolutely.
Is
That's
that
fine.
cool? Because
Yeah.
we'll record this
Okay.
and show it for the
Okay.
Rebel.
Okay.
Awesome. Give a big round for trainer Jeremiah Englehart for taking time out of his busy morning. Thank you so much. Enjoy your
I'm
donuts.
going to.
And you can share with the barn.
Oh,
Or not.
let's see.
Or not.
Oh, is it a
It-
dozen?
Well, we didn't
It-
stench.
Well, because I figured I'd have 3, and that would. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Nancy.